Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the CPEC summit that was held in Karachi, chaired by the Prime Minister, Shahid Khan Bassi, and the Chinese ambassador was also there on the occasion. A lot of investors from both the sides also attended this particular, and a couple of observations were also made regarding progress. One of the very important issues that a lot of people do ask, that maybe it's a trap, a debt trap. So primarily, it was also clear that this is a joint sharing kind of a program, and nobody even heard of CPEC about 3-4 years ago, but now it's a reality, and more than $60 billion would be spent on various areas, including the infrastructure and energy, so on and so forth. So starting from the top, from the Khunjura Pass all the way down to Gwadar, a lot of economic activity is going to take place. So many economic zones developed and would be handed over to certain countries so that they can develop their own products, and eventually this is going to be one of the major arms of the OBOR. Now, obviously, as earlier mentioned, that a lot of observations were also considered, question sessions there as well. But overall, the investments in the infrastructure need to be sped up. That's what the observation was, that, the money is coming in, but one has to be efficient, effective, and more productive. That was one of the very, very important observations. And earlier, in one of the previous summits, it was also announced by the Chinese investors that there are two major hurdles. One is the bureaucratic hurdle, or you could call it the red tape issue, or the hindrance. And the second is about the efficiency and the effectiveness and the overall productivity of the Pakistani worker and their attitude towards work also. Because when you talk about the Chinese worker, their efficiency is at the optimum level. So one has to compete with them. So you have to come up with some sort of a solution. You need to train your workers at various levels, whether you talk about middle management or the low management or the basic staff. Other than that, obviously, we'll be talking about some areas where a lot of investment is made, what else needs to be done, what sort of issues do these different provinces have so far, and is the government or the federal government or the cabinet is looking after those affairs, because they are also very important regarding the route and the kind of planning, and as well as the distribution of money in that regard. Second important part, which I'll be also talking about, is a story that was in November last year, about 6 months ago, when General Zubair was addressing a seminar in Islamabad, and he said that around $500 million were allocated to RAW, the Indian Spy Agency Research and Analysis Wing. They have been given this money to make sure that CPEC is sabotaged. And this is why we see, and even today as we speak, there was this attack on FC personnel in which 5 Jawans were martyred. This is the latest report. And a dozen were injured in that particular attack. There were 2 suicide bombers. So this is primarily a part of that war, that hybrid war that has been imposed in Pakistan. Now the point is that whether you talk about such notorious activities taking place in KPK, or you talk about such incidents taking place in the tribal areas, or in Karachi, or in particular in Balochistan, this is part of that larger game plan. As Ajit Doval said, that this is going to be an offensive defense kind of a scheme, where they would try to make sure that they could pin Pakistan at every possible level. Let me introduce you to our panelists who will be a part of the discussion today. Tonight we have with us on my right is Dr. Manzoor Ahmed Saab. He needs no introduction. He is a former ambassador to World Trade Organization, WTO, and also the president of Time Institute. So thank you very much for taking out the time and being here with us. We also have with us Dr. Waqar Ahmed, again an economist, known one, and is also the joint executive director of SDPI. So thank you very much. And with us, Mohammed Faiq Shah Saab. He is a known political commentator and expert on CPEC. Thank you very much, sir. And we'll be also joined in by Yasir Masood Saab in a little while. He is also a foreign affairs expert. But starting off with you, so first of all, let's start off from the basic. Obviously, we will talk about the summit, the 2-day summit that was held in Karachi, and everybody showed their concerns, as well as the positive side was that they were very happy with the development so far. But let's go back in year 2001, 7 November, when General Zubair, the Joint Chief, spoke and said that 500 million have been over to RAW to make sure that CPEC is sabotaged. Because, this is going to be the backbone of Pakistan's economy. You're talking about 60 billion plus investments so far, and it is going to cross 100 billion at some stage as well. And obviously, when you talk about the money which Pakistan is going to generate, that is going to be in billions and billions of dollars. So primarily, you're talking about the perfect economic take of Pakistan, and how can India be happy with that? That's why they have totally ignored CPEC. They are not a part of the deal, despite the fact that they're losing a lot on this front. But having said that, first of all, sir, the concern made by the Joint Chief regarding that. Your takes on that?
Well, I'm not really privy to this, but we can see that India has openly said that they are not in favor of the CPEC initiative. And, obviously if they are so openly opposed to it, they're likely to do anything, whatever, to oppose it. So, although not knowing about the figures and how they would do it, but it's clear they would do whatever they can to hamper that and to ensure that it will become a success.
I'll just read out. Zubair Mahmood Hayat, this is November 14, 2017, alleged that India's Research and Analysis Wing, RAW, has established a cell in 2015 dedicated to China-Pakistan economic projects in Pakistan. So something happens in Gilgit-Baltistan or in Karachi or in Gwadar or in Balochistan, obviously that is of prime concern, because if it is security related, there will be a lot of ifs and buts.
I'm sure there must be something, Chief Staff would not make a statement like this. I think the government is fully aware of this. That's why they've taken good care of security. They have raised security force to protect it, and they're aware that, whether it's Navy or Army or Air Force, they're all aware, and they're taking good steps to ensure that nothing bad happens. And the good thing is that, the insurgency which was there 2-3 years ago, maybe foreign sponsored, perhaps a foreign sponsored, but that's not subsided quite a bit. So the signs are hopeful in general.
So you seem to be pretty optimistic. Your take, Dr. Bakar, on the same point.
Thank you. I think we need to sort of step back here and see that it's not just India which has been against the overall Belt and Road Initiative. And the very framework, as Dr. Manzoor said, the very framework behind this Belt and Road Initiative, when you talk of the region, it's also, of course, the other two countries, which include the US and now to some extent Afghanistan as well, which has very close ties with India. And why it doesn't go in favor that these three countries haven't been helping the cause of CPEC or development in the region, still Pakistan has to, of course, come forward and have a policy of its own going forward. Now, if India is on record and their officials are on record having said that they would be opposing Belt and Road Initiative, you would recall,
on numerous occasions.
Yes. And you would recall, Faisal, that when 43 or 44 nations
met in
Beijing,
yeah,
India was
they did not come. Though the private sector did.
Yes. So India was one of those invitees who weren't there. It's very rare to see somebody refusing China's invitation. So what I'd say is that competition is fairly open from their side, and it's very sad that competition has taken an ugly face, unfortunately.
So this is something not to worry about, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we shouldn't neglect it either.
Absolutely. We need to be very prepared.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your take on the same point, and then I'll move forward.
Well, I've been there to Gwadar, and I think we should not worry at all, because practically speaking and frankly speaking, Pakistan Army and Pakistan forces are doing an excellent job over there as far as security is concerned. Mm-hmm. So whatever people think about India is going to do this and that, I think nothing like that is going to happen, because the amount of security, the amount of planning that our forces have there, that's excellent. Hats off to them.
What about the difference? I mean, when you look at the Karachi port and the Gwadar port, I mean, obviously Gwadar is a sea port, which is a natural port. So what sort of development, and I'm sure you have traveled abroad and you've seen different ports, how do you compare that? So far, what is the current situation there?
Well, Karachi port is a very ancient port. I mean, that's a pre-partition port. Mm-hmm. And so currently, we should not be comparing it with Gwadar port, but the future of Gwadar port is such that Karachi port will stand nowhere in front of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, whatever you can dream of, you'll find it in Gwadar. And you should compare with any huge and big and any big size which you can dream of in the world. So Gwadar will be, inshallah, one of that.
Sir, if you remember,
yeah.
we had the largest shipbreaking in the world, Dani.
Yes.
Indians, I'm not sure which city was it, but they had the second largest.
Yes.
And now we hardly hear of Gadani anymore. Where those ships go now? I was having with one of the former vice chiefs of the Navy, and he said, we are so lucky that if Gwadar develops fully, we will be able to make sure that all those ships which go to the Middle Eastern side, which pass through this area, we can always have a repair kind of a workshop, a huge one, where you could repair these huge ships and all. And that is also not going to only generate jobs, but a lot can be done on A. And secondly, when we talk about Pakistan, he said Pakistan has got 5 provinces. He wasn't referring to Gilgit-Baltistan. He was talking the sea, the Arabian Sea, that area of sea which Pakistan has. And unfortunately, we haven't capitalized on so many fronts. When you talk about oil drilling, gas exploration, or you talk about even seafood for that matter. So what are the areas where you think we have the potential but are still unfortunately neglected? Though, yes, CPEC is a great dream, but it's a dream. It has to be converted into a reality. What needs to be done?
Yeah, first, Faisal, a slightly difference of opinion with you.
Go ahead.
I don't think it was a dream maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It's no more a dream. Here you have light coming and going every 1 hour. Yeah, you know, I go to my village. It used to take me 3 hours. Now it takes me, there's a brand new road towards Ahmedabad and motorway. So it takes me, it's no more a dream. It's actually,
a reality now?
It's becoming a reality. It will take a few more years, you know, maybe another 5 years, 10 years for all the projects to get completed. But it's actually, it's becoming a reality. That's the first thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing about Gwadar, you know, Gwadar is likely to be a deep sea port. For the time being, what's happening in Karachi port is that if the big ships come, you see, they stay outside, and then they download into the small boats, and then they bring it in. Other ships can come in. But with the Gwadar port, no such thing. It can come, the ships can
any size can come. Whether it's 100,000 ton or whatever.
Yes, yes. And then Karachi, regularly we have to dredging it, and they're quite expensive for maintenance. This would be a different port. Any bulk thing and big things can come in, and this will have very modern infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So the Gwadar port will be, you know, a big, although Karachi is a very young port and will keep continuing, and Port Qasim port, Gwadar in 10 years' time will be a completely different port than they.
When you say completely different port, like what would be the difference? You know, somebody asked that what is the difference between Chabahar and Gwadar? And the answer was very interesting, actually. He did not talk about the infrastructure or the overall philosophy of the port or the outcome or the kind of desired results which we need to have at some stage. He said security, you'll find a security checkpoint after almost every mile. But in Chabahar, they couldn't find even a single checkpoint. So the movement, and recently there were a couple of incidents also with the Chinese. They wanted to go out, but they were told not to because of the security concerns. And obviously they were frustrated. And it's actually phenomenon. This is human psychology. How do you see that part, sir?
I think the things will change. You also see, if you even look
at the most accepted foreigner in Pakistan is the Chinese.
No. What you see about 6 months ago in Islamabad, if you travel off the road, there are huge, you know, checkposts. If you go to Serena Hotel, it's a checkpost started from there.
Even on the Rio area, right in front of the President House.
Yeah, but it's things have changed. So maybe
law and order is getting in control.
Getting better. Mm-hmm. Checkposts are becoming much less. So maybe 2 years down the line, it will be a different thing than what it is now. You know, yesterday for the first time I could just drive up to Serena, right up to the entrance. Yeah. That's after 3 or 4, 5 years it happened. So things have improved already, and those checkposts are
improvements, yes.
Still maybe 2 years behind their time, maybe 2 years or 1 year, and so hopefully things will change.
Dr. Your take, yeah?
Yes, I think this is very good that Dr. Manur pointed this out. I think CPEC, and given that early harvest projects are already reaching their completion, it has been a success. At least the first phase of it, you're already seeing completion. You have $27 billion of projects already in pipeline. So no matter whatever is overall volume or size of CPEC, you have $27 billion right here in your country, and you can already see it translating to the growth numbers. I think one of the biggest beneficiaries in the past 2 years has been Balochistan. A person like me would have never imagined that you would have Gwadar-Quetta road up and running and people would be using it, you would have really never thought that those industrial estates in Balochistan which had gone deserted would again find their interest. And now you have business persons are going into Las Bela, Lolai, Zob, and the interest of the local business community is reviving, The second beneficiary has been the youth, given that the jobs have, the job number is looking good. And this has come on the back of those...
This is the economic activity, basically.
Economic activity.
Yeah.
And this Faisal Saab has come on the back of those half a dozen energy projects under CPEC which have seen the completion, timely completion, if I can say, And given that there's uninterrupted supply of power and gas now to our industry, despite of the summer months approaching, this has sort of given a boost to the third beneficiary, which is those 5 exporting sectors in this country. Mm-hmm. We've already seen an uptick in Pakistan's exports during the past 2 quarters, you know. I'm sort of a person who would like to believe that the dividends of CPEC are already there. Now what we should be prepared of is the second phase of CPEC, which is the special economic zones. We need to get these 9 special economic zones up and running. This is where Chinese private sector has to be lured in.
Are they working on those 9? Because I've heard only 2 are sort of not operational yet, but the work is like properly done on 2 instead of 9.
Your information is in the last JCC meeting, both Chinese and Pakistani authorities decided that out of the 2 would be priority special economic zones. But it's not that the plan to develop others have been abandoned. It's just that Chinese private sector had greater interest in 2 priority special economic zones, which is one is in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and the other in Punjab.
So I'll just cut to you, sir. We've been joined in by Yasir Masood. Assalamu alaikum, Yasir.
Walaikum salam.
Now, I hope you can hear me clearly. Yasir, we were talking about the CPEC, and obviously we were throwing light on this 2-day summit that was held yesterday, concluded today. First of all, your take on this particular summit, how fruitful could this be? Obviously, a lot of observations have been made, and at the same time, the Prime Minister has also appreciated the initiatives taken by the Pakistanis as well as the Chinese at so many levels and on various lines in so many other particular areas. How do you see that, sir?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think it's one of those initiatives taken by the government that, for my observation is that this is one of the huge and one of the finest, exhibition took place in Karachi, where there were lots of entrepreneurs, there were people from academia, there were people from each and every sector, you name it, whether they are related with business or otherwise. And the best thing about this CPEC summit is that we had yellow views, from different provinces of Pakistan, because all the chief ministers of Pakistan, they explained that how it is going to be inclusive. When we say that CPEC is inclusive, how Sindh is going to get benefited, apart from Gwadar, how Balochistan will get a boost in other sectors. Similar was the case with the KPK and Punjab. So at one platform, we get so many different aspects related to CPEC. And yes, to me, it's a great source of learning, even for me as well, that I came across entrepreneurs from China and from Pakistan. So in all respects, I think it's a very big success for the Pakistan government as well as for the Chinese side, because the whole day today was dedicated towards the Chinese view, that how they view CPEC and how, when we say that CPEC is a game changer, how it's going to have positive implications for Chinese as well.
Obviously, as they say, the Chinese always where they see there's profit and there's some long-term benefit for them. But one more quick comment, and then I'll move on to my next guest. But you stay online with us. We were earlier also having a word about the security situation, and most of my guests agree that the security has tremendously improved, not only in Islamabad or Punjab for that matter, but generally speaking in that part of the world as well. When you talk about Gwadar, things are changing. There's a lot of development taking place. A lot of people are getting employment there. How do you see that aspect? Because you have a very...
I think Pakistan is on the positive side. When we talk about the security situation for the last couple of years or so, and I will turn the clock back to, I will take to 5 years back, that what was the situation as far as security is concerned. But because now we are out of that phase, and this is going to give, that push towards our insecurity or security situation, because all over the world we have seen that economic activity or economic accentuation can help a great deal in reducing or mitigating the security situations. So in that sense, I think CPEC is going to further stabilize the country's situation, because you see all the way from Khyber to Gwadar, if we see Pakistani security forces have done a tremendous job. So, and I would like to comment upon one thing, that for one reason or the other, Pakistan remained under the fold of geostrategic policy. Now it's the time when Chinese have given this realization to Pakistani government that we have to come under the fold of geo-economic strategies, because through this, as we know, that lots of other countries they have got development and they progress. So in the same vein, I would say that yes, Pakistan is right and now on the right path, and this geo-economic policies will bring us at a stage that we would be called as a middle income or not middle income, but would be included in the list of better economies of the world.
All right. You stay on line with us, Yasir Masood. Let me put another question to our guest, Faiq Shah. Now, a couple of important points. A, when we talk about the human resource development or human capital, unfortunately, we are expensive and we are not that effective and efficient. Obviously, the labor is not that well trained. Second, that there is a natural phenomena for some reason that they don't want to work. I'll be very straightforward because this is something very, very unfortunate. If it exists, it needs to be tackled and taken care of. The attitude of the people, because this was, I'm not saying it, I've heard it from a Chinese entrepreneur who was heading a Chinese company. He said the credit problem and the struggle they have to go through and the file from one table to another takes months, when in China it would take 4 or 5 days. So this is something which you referred to. How do you see that part, sir?
Well,
the governance here.
Yeah, well, partly true, whatever you're saying. But before answering your question, I would take I'll take a little moment to tell you that something informal about Gwadar. I mean, we're talking very serious stuff about Gwadar here. So let me talk something informal. I was there with my wife and regarding security. So nobody would take his wife if security issues are there. And let me tell all of the Pakistani business community here and the world that it was wonderful when we both were there. I almost had my second honeymoon there because I've been to Mauritius and to countries like that, to Maldives, and the sea color. I mean, the beautiful,
white sand, beautiful,
blue, bluish, greenish, and we flew to Gwadar, and then going back, we did that by road. So again, I would like to tell all my Pakistani friends and families here that the road from Gwadar to Karachi, if you go through that road, so it's 100% secure, 100% secure. And secondly, it is so beautiful. I mean, you would see so beautiful things.
Do you believe that tourism is another area which needs to be sort of highlighted in that?
Could be one of the top areas.
Because if you look at Greece, look at so many other countries, I mean, their total economy is, or maybe 90-95% is based on tourism. So do you think that is one more area which one has to
I mean, if you look at Turkey is using its seasides like anything. So this could be there.
Yeah, look at Sri Lanka, look at Maldives. You just
look at Maldives, yes, yeah. Of course.
And this is resource.
This is much more beautiful than.
You think that could be one more area? And coming back to obviously, when you go to Maldives, you'll find a lot of Indians. You'll find a lot of people from the Far East. They're very well trained. They're professional. Over here, unfortunately, when you talk about the human capital, at various levels, at various layers.
See, I got a chance outside Pakistan. And I worked with Chinese. They have worked with me in my own factories outside Pakistan in Central Asian states. And my Pakistani engineers were also there with them. So frankly speaking, I didn't see any difference between Pakistani engineers and the Chinese engineers.
No, I'm not talking about the Pakistani working abroad. I'm talking about the Pakistani working in Pakistan.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just the environment. Because over there, we give them a good environment in our factories. And if you do the same here to that Pakistani labor and that Pakistani engineers or those technical people, they'll perform better than Chinese, inshallah.
You think that by training Pakistani youngsters, because there's a bulk of youth, 65% of the overall population, maybe more than that, is basically what we call youth. So in order to have the dividend from them, and let's not consider them as a demographic disaster, you need to train them. And everybody can't become a doctor or an engineer. You need to have good welders, you need to have good plumbers, you need to have people from all walks of life, basically. So you think the training part is something also very crucial, which the government has to look into, or either it should be handed over to the Chinese so that they can teach them, they can make them more efficient.
There's a little difference between Chinese workers and Pakistani workers. Chinese workers used to work outside their country, anywhere in the world, whereas Pakistani workers are that much used to as compared to Chinese workers are.
Mostly in the Middle East.
Everywhere in the world. They go everywhere. They're doing everywhere. So they're present everywhere. I mean, Chinese are everywhere. So good for China. So once it gets started in Gwadar, but again, I'll request the Pakistani business families, the business houses, that they should go with their families there and they should look into Gawada.
Get the feel of Gawada.
Get the feel of Gawada. They should get the feel of Gawada. That's the right word for it.
If I may ask you one quick comment, then come back to your expectations before going to other, and what you saw in reality. What kind of a difference was there?
Well,
was it better than what you perceived?
a little bit of something I would say which is true. I mean, not all good.
Not all good.
Not all good. I thought the airport would be a much.
That is part of infrastructure.
But the airport, the Pakistani government, and you all need to do it very quickly. I mean, we need a bigger airport over there, which good facilities over there. Because if I go over there and I see that airport, so I know what will happen in the next 2 years. But if a foreigner comes there and he sees that airport, so that is, we should be fast on that.
We need to have a bigger airport and a proper one.
Yeah, and as quick as possible. And secondly, when I went there, when I saw the restaurants there, the hoteling there, so that was like a wow for me. So
really good.
Oh yes, I never expected something like that.
That is something new which we hear.
Yes,
actually.
and then you said about production. So you said something about the fisheries as well. Chinese have started a fish industry over there, and they've started a very huge and a very bulk export from there. I don't know what company is that, but they are doing excellent business over there. And I think
the crabs, I would say
a particular fish there.
Lobsters.
A particular fish there.
Swordfish.
Yes.
Swordfish, if I'm not wrong.
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember the name. I can't catch it. But they're putting a particular fish.
Humphrey.
And they're I think there for a very low price.
And so that's where the value comes in. I think there's another very important area. Obviously, we talk about the basics. I've heard that they have also a huge oil terminal there as well. Correct, Dr. Faiq?
That's right.
But at the same time, I think what we need to do is something which we need to do. Let the Chinese do their thing, but Pakistan should be in collaboration, 50-50, and then let's go forward with that. Now, so first of all, your take, because this is something very important earlier, the labor point, because this is one of the major concerns of the Chinese, that how can they have 100% Chinese workers in Gawada? And somebody was telling me they erected a building, that was a housing area for the Chinese workers, and that was a 4-story tall, and which they erected and was ready to use within a span of 90 days. I mean, if they can do that, obviously we need to do something to be at par with them. Sir.
Yes, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of need for training. And then, as Shah Sahab just said, I mean, Chinese workers have an exposure everywhere. So even our labor, when they go to Middle East, they're another species. I mean, they're far more efficient. You look at their taxi drivers or anything.
Everyone.
So once I think
there's a discipline.
Once they come out of this competition, once they get the training is extremely, basically you need to have education and then some training, a plumber or whoever. You need some basic education so that you can use the internet, you can, So these things are required, and we need to work much faster than we have done so far. On human development, unfortunately, we have been rather slow. On the infrastructure side, we have been very fast. In the last 2-3 years, all these roads, infrastructure, power plants, everything.
You look at the bridges they've made in the northern areas, I mean, you feel as if you're somewhere in Europe.
Yes.
Unbelievable infrastructure work.
On the software side, on our, say, trade facilitation, on our training, we have been a little bit slow. And it takes a while. I think we need to focus.
So the culture is going to develop soon.
Yes.
Of being productive.
Yeah, there are good private sector initiatives like Honor Foundation. They're private, but there's a limit to what they can do. It's the government we need to change our educational system. We have now universities all over the country, everywhere.
Every person is doing an MBA and getting a clerical job.
But they're not producing skilled people for the right job. And that needs to change.
And another one thing, Dr. Bakar, entrepreneurship. Everybody wants to do, or rather they want to have a master's degree, and then they're looking for a job. I mean, that mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, that seems to be something very important which is missing indeed.
It is indeed. So
look at the Chinese, or look at people working within the universities, and they're becoming millionaires because they're working at the same time.
No, you're absolutely right, Faisal. Actually, the decade and a half, prior to 2013-14, saw literally a phase of deindustrialization in the country. There was an energy crisis. Your industry was really closing down. If you look at what was happening in vocational education and vocational training prior to 2005, it was the industry which was offering its services, because industry had that kind of surplus to invest not only its own labor, but in the communities where it was working, like one of the foundations which Dr. Manzoor talked about, for example. It's only post 2009 that industry had to cut back on its expenses and couldn't support that kind of vocational education. And government's own vocational training arms were not sort of up to the task, primarily because that linkage between industry, government and academia was largely missing. We did have government agencies, government authorities which were mandated for that task, which you had a huge turnover within those industries as well. But I think your point about human resource management, human resource development goes back to even the public sector. So most of the programs or development sector initiatives which we have been discussing in this round, a large part of them have to be sort of implemented by civil service. And I think it is equally important that when we talk about labor capacity in the private sector, we should also talk about the civil service capacity in the public sector, which has to deliver on those public sector schemes, so to say. And it is sad to note that in the tenure of this government, there were two separate commissions which were formed on civil service reforms. They had presented very detailed proposals, and somehow there wasn't any seriousness to implement civil service reforms in the country.
Now, let's go to Yasir. Yasir, one important area, obviously we do understand this is a part of Vision 2025, and the government says that they've made sure that regional activity is a key component in that particular vision program. And one major area, which we haven't talked about yet, but I did discuss that in the introduction, and that is about the sort of impression that CPEC is not a death trap. This is what Asad Iqbal Sahab said. But a lot of people think, Chinese will take over, Pakistan won't be able to pay back, not know what are the conditions of these deals and everything. What is your take on this?
Well, I would second the opinion of Asad Iqbal Sahab, and I have personally written about this as well, that CPEC is not a trap. It's rather going to solve our other debt-related issues as well. I would give you an example that, for example, if we see that every year there is loss of about 7% of GDP due to our dilapidated and inefficient transport system. So even if and because of CPEC, it is there is a huge funding and investment to the transport sector as well, that because of CPEC, because of the regional connectivity, it's an important component. So even if we talk about transport, the better infrastructure, the better roads will enable us that we would be able to reduce all the losses of, even if it is 7%, if we can bring down to 2% or 3%. So in that sense, we will be able to save, and at the same time, we will be able to pay. So absolutely, it's not a debt trap at all. And there are lots of views and appear on daily basis in
Hello? I think there's a problem regarding the voice of the guest who's in Karachi. But sir, last quick comment from you, Shah Sahab. Definitely, this is a great program for Pakistan, not only for Pakistan, I would say for the entire regions. It is generally believed that, as earlier mentioned by a dear friend Yasir, he said that Pakistan has always been looked upon as a geostrategic country, we always do for geostrategic policy rather. But now this is the time that geo-economic policy should be followed. So that transition from geostrategic to geo-economic, how long do you think that will take, and how important CPEC is for the kind of change?
Well, I would suggest that our government and we as a nation, we should have a separate ministry for CPEC only. And that ministry should have its offices in all the 4 provinces as well. And our government need to legislate more towards CPEC in terms of how are we going to manage each and every month, how are we going to manage each and every decade. Because if we go on fast with CPEC, so we can really have a very, very unexpected economic boom, not only in Pakistan, but in the whole of this region.
Like, I was watching a very documentary on BBC about Singapore. There was this photographer who was taking pictures of Singapore because this was his passion. Did you see that, Dr. Waqar? And he just captured everything during the last 50 years, and unbelievable. And he had played all those pictures, and people could not believe, the youngsters especially, that this used to be Singapore 50 years ago. Obviously, we can't expect change in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. It was a matter indeed of decades. But obviously, we're moving in the right direction. But let's hope that our future generations could see, somebody should capture those pictures and could show after 50 years that this used to be Pakistan, but now it is a first world country just like Singapore. But anyway, since I'm running out of time, Shah Sahib, thank you very much. Dr. Waqar, it was a pleasure. Dr. Manzoor, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Yasir Masood, for taking out your time and talking to us also over Skype. And well, that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 8 p.m. Till then, you take care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz and goodbye from our side.